You are one of thousands of people enjoying the content produced by Christ Community Church's C3 Media. First, we want to say thank you and let you know it's our pleasure to serve you. As a nonprofit organization, we are always looking for strategic and financial partners. If you are benefiting from our content, we ask that you consider partnering with us. Even a small donation like $1 per week will go a long way. Thank you for your continued support, and we know God has a great plan for your life.
It is good to be back. It's been a few weeks since I've spoken to you, and I've been looking forward to this sermon for a while. It's actually something that's super near and dear to my heart. It's really shaped my leadership, how I approach ministry, how I approach people. And so I've been waiting to share this for, like, it's been in my back pocket. And it was like, now's time, because we have the book study coming up. And like, I realize that there is a commitment and there is a price to pay for the book study. It's going to cost you some evenings. It's going to cost you however much the book costs. It's going to cost you time to read the book, and it may cost you the uncomfortableness of going to a house that you've never been to and sitting with a group of people you may not know. We are completely, utterly aware of that. But I'm here to tell you, we're not just doing it to have a nice thing to do. We're doing it because we believe that God is building a community, a deeper level of community, and that God wants to, it's something we've been praying for as young adults, he wants to put a kingdom mindset inside of his people. So we have a book that we believe the Lord has assigned to us to read because there's truths that are going to come to it, and he's going to put us in a group of people so we don't feel alone and we're not fighting by ourselves, and we're going to walk together, and we believe that on the other side of this book study, things are going to change. So I realize you might be like, I don't want to. I mean, you do you, but you might want to pray about it. And because God has the habit, if you haven't experienced it already, that sometimes he's like, I know you don't want to, but I want you to take the step. I can use your name because you love me. Jenna over here. She did not want to come to young adults. She did not. She actually emailed me and said, well, he's a busy guy. He'll never get back to me. And to her frustration, I got back to her, I think the same afternoon. And so she showed up and she was like, I don't want to be here. I don't like meeting new people. This is very uncomfortable. And now Jenna is one of the prime people in our ministry. Like, she is she has community. God speaks to her, she shares things, but it happened on the other side of a step of faith. She didn't let her desire to remain safe behind a wall keep her from stepping into something that God had for her. And I'm telling you, I guarantee you there are people throughout this room, you feel exactly the way she did. I'm an introvert. I don't like hanging out with a group of people I don't know. It is not comfortable for me. It's not. So I feel you. I totally get it. But if you pray and the Lord's like, just buy the book. Just, buy it from like used books. It's like $4. Yeah, super cheap, man. You'll love it. And it's a good book. Like the kingdom mindset thing is to help us think differently. Because when we think differently and when we believe differently, we live differently. And so if we just keep maintaining the same thought patterns and the same defeatist mindsets, how can we progress? But if we get truths from the word and from the presence, then we grow. And so if you can't tell, I'm very passionate about community. And then it's just so happens it's in our name. So I think we're tapping into some DNA here that was probably not thought of when we were named 30 years ago, but we are Christ Community Church. Come on. And so, Stacy, you just nailed the word because I'm going to be the third or fourth person to jump off of it. But when she was sharing about the overflow, it made me realize we have to envision prophetically, what does the overflow look like? It's one thing to say he wants to overflow and then just go about life. But it's a whole other thing to say the Lord is speaking overflow what does that look like? What does that mean? Like, how do I grasp it? Instead of just talking about this thing that's out here, how do I grab it as a word from the Lord and bring it in? How do we do that as a community? How do you do that individually? And I think it comes from sitting with the Lord and going, what does that look like? Sorry, I'm talking fast. But if we had overflow in this church, you know, if the painting that the guy painted and spoke over the church that's in the lobby of Jesus taking the roof off and putting the Holy Spirit inside, instead of just going, yes, Lord, that's amazing, what would that look like, and how can we prepare now for what he wants to do? Because that's how you're supposed to operate in the prophetic. You see something that isn't yet here, and you begin to make moves now so that when it lands, it can be sustained. Because if we don't make the moves and it comes, if we don't have the vessel ready, it will come and it will leave and we'll say, those were great days. That's not God's intention to say those were great days. He wants to come and habitate. He wants to go from glory to glory to glory. And so my question for me, my question for us is, how do we prepare now for what he wants to do? Because he said he's going to do it. You know, it's in Isaiah 54. It says, the barren woman should extend the pegs of her tents because her family's going to be bigger than the women that have kids. He says, look, you're barren. You cannot have children, but you're gonna, so extend your tent. Don't look at your present experience and make your decisions based on that. Get the vision from heaven of what is coming and begin to extend the tents. And so I think that this book study is a way for us to extend our tents. Because if people are coming, if revival's coming, if new people are showing up, we better have a community that can handle it. We better have something in place where people can come to a community where they are loved and seen and accepted and walked with and healed. Amen. And so the kingdom is not supposed to be done alone. The Christian walk cannot fully be done by yourself. I'm convinced of it. Because you see things differently than me. You have gifts different than me. And so if I just do me, it's just me and Jesus, we're going to make it, then I am limited to just what I have. But when I team up with people who carry what I don't carry, when I team up with people who go, Jim, you're not looking at things the right way, check this out, all of a sudden I'm walking healthier because I'm not just living in what I carry, I'm living in what the community carries. God will hide your need in other people. There are other people that might have that word that you need, that might have that miracle to pray for you that you need. They might have that insight that you need. They may have that experience that you need. We cannot do this on our own. And so community has been here since the very conception of the church. If you look in Acts chapter 2, like literally, I'm going to look, I know it's up there, but I'm going to go back one verse. Acts chapter 2, so you know, Pentecost comes, Peter preaches, the people are convicted, he preaches the gospel, and then it's like, so Peter says, and with many other words, he bore witness and continued to exhort them, saying, save yourselves from this crooked generation. So those who received his word were baptized, and they were added to that day about 3,000 souls. That's verse 41. So he preaches the gospel, and the 3,000 come in. We all know that story. The church is birthed right there in that moment. The very next section of scripture says, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And awe came upon No, we're good. I'm reading my Bible, different translations, but all right. And awe came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common, and they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day, attending temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. Community is God's idea. Yeah. Literally, from the moment the church was birthed, community showed up. And if you notice, it doesn't say, and they met at the temple once a week for an hour and a half, and then they came back next week. It says they ate together, they spent time together, they prayed together, they helped each other with their needs. There is an interaction that's going on that's more than what we would just call showing up at church. And the prime example of this for me, and will forever be for the rest of my life, is Kirsten Bennett, who is watching online right now. Kirsten showed up. We started the young adult ministry fall of 2021, 2020 something. She shows up probably the second or third meeting in the daycare. I had never seen her before. And so she shows up and I was like, "Oh, are you new?" She's like, "Well, actually I've been coming here for like 3 years." I said, "Oh." She goes, "I come and I leave." She's like, that's how things work. I said, "Oh, okay." Long story short, she likes us, we love her. It's great. She's part of the community. Now, if you talk to Kirsten is prophetic. She's powerful. She was super quiet, super, introverted. She ministers to people in bowling alleys. She'll call me up with prophetic words. She preaches. This girl is walking in a level and an anointing that has been in her the whole time, but it wasn't until she found community that something pulled it out of her. Because there's something about a safe community that releases people into who God has created them to be. Churches, I'm not saying this church, but church has a reputation of being full of gossips, being full of people that look down on you, judgmental. They're waiting for you to screw up. They're waiting to drop a hammer on you. And it's like, who can be open in that kind of an environment? You can sing songs all day long. I don't care. If I don't trust you and you've shown that you're actually not for me, I'll stay in my little hole and be safe. But if we can have a community that is for each other, a community that wants to see people just explode in the calling of God on their life, who want to see people succeed, because I'm secure enough in me that if you succeed, I don't have to feel bad about me. It's a healthy mindset where we actually are rooting each other on, and people are being developed. People are having experiences. Kirsten, the first time she spoke on a Zoom meeting, she was super nervous. But she had a community of Zoom people who love her, who's like, "You can't screw this up, because even if it's terrible, we're still gonna love you and root you on and help you move forward." And I learned this. This was honestly, I think, one of the greatest things I learned from my time in California. Because the way the school works is they take the school body and they break you into groups of about 60 people. And my first year, I was in this group, and one of the things they do is they like to stretch you. So they'll be like, take someone who's never prophesied. They'll be like, stand in the middle of the room and get a word for Dina. And so you will watch people in utter terror come up, I've shared some of my experiences. It can be intense. But the pastor of my group, he did this thing and it annoyed me at first. But, okay, so you have 60 people, especially in the beginning, who don't know each other. Everybody's feeling it out. This is a whole new thing. And they would be like, "Okay, we're gonna do, I'll just keep using it. A prophetic activation, and Dina, you're up." And Dina stands in terror. And the pastor would have everybody stand up and give her a standing ovation. And then she would do her thing, and it would be like, great, and she would sit down. And after a while, I was like, this is dumb. Why does that person need a standing ovation to go do a prophetic dance or, share a scripture on their heart or do something. And then it was my turn. And I don't remember what it was, but I stood up and everybody stood up and applauded me. And I felt this strength come inside of me. It was like, these people love me. They're for me. Like, I can do this, and they're gonna hold me up even if I can't. And all of a sudden, I was like, I get it. I get the standing ovation thing. There's something about when you know you're safe, that you can take risk, that you can step out in faith, that you can dare to grow because you've got people to cover you. This cannot exist in a place that's not safe. But if we become a community that's safe, that honor people, that see people beyond their failures and beyond their faults and beyond the things that we don't care for, but actually see who God's created them to be, then we become prophetic people who can call gold out of people, and we become a community that grows corporately, and we become more powerful. But you have to give yourself to it. Like the Acts 2 thing, you have to show up. You have to pray. You have to go to the dinner. And it doesn't have to be great groups. Maybe it's one person is like, hey, let's go to lunch. My life changed literally by going to lunch. When I first got out to California, I had no friends. I didn't know anybody. I literally didn't know anybody. And I sat down at church, and this dude sat next to me, and it was like a communion Sunday. And they said, and they don't do this all the time, but they said, exchange communion with the person next to you. So I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I was like, okay. We exchanged, like, cool. And he was a very nice dude, and church is ending, and I felt like the Lord said, ask him to go to lunch. And I'm like, God, I don't ask dudes to go to lunch. That's not something I typically do. And I was like, that's weird. And but it was like, I have no friends, and he seems nice. So I was like, hey man, I don't know what you're doing after church, but you want to get some food? He goes, I can't today, but what are you doing Tuesday? Nothing, let's get lunch. I don't know anybody. We go to lunch. We became such great friends. I was in his wedding. He ended up being a local from Redding. He took me to all the waterfalls and cool places that people don't know about. And we became just the best of friends. And then through him, I met some other people, and I met a guy named Austin who invited me to watch MMA, which I don't care about MMA. I just needed a friend to hang out with. So I went to watch MMA, and afterwards, he's like, so are you here for school? I said, nah. I said, I was a pastor in Pennsylvania. I've been to Bible school. I don't need school. He's like, oh, okay. Well, let me tell you about school anyway, and we chatted about it. Well, that night, I have a dream, and God's like, you're in school. Go to school. I went to school. It's amazing what asking a random dude to lunch can do. Literally altered my life. We need people. We need each other. I need you. And you need me. Hopefully you need me. And so there's this thing that when we come together, it releases something supernatural, I believe. And so check this out. It's in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11. It says, therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. And then in Ephesians 4:29, it says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth, but only such is good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. So we got two verses that say, build each other up. We're here to build each other up, not tear each other down. I have known people who they thought it was their job after church to complain about everything that went wrong with that service. I bet you know some of those people too. Not that they're here, but just those people. That's not kingdom. And it actually has no place in the body of Christ. You can have an opinion and you can have concerns. Deal with them biblically. If you have a thing, go to the person. If you have a concern, go to the leader. Humbly. Don't tell all your friends and don't do anything about it. We need to be healthy. We need, if God is coming, what is he going to land on? He can't land on people who act like that. Or he will and he'll go. We're preparing for something big. We're preparing for a move. And we need to align our thinking and our hearts in line with that. And so it says, build each other up. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, I believe in verse 12, Paul says, if you're eager for manifestations of the Spirit, this is right after talking about spiritual gifts, he says, strive. Man, my autocorrect messed it up. Darn it. Luckily, I know where it's at. That is definitely not what the Bible says. All right, 14:12. It says, so with yourselves, since you are eager for manifestations of the Spirit, strive to excel in building up the church. There is something when we set our hearts to build people up, that manifestations of the gifts and the gifts of the Spirit will easily and naturally flow, because that's what they do. If you read 1 Corinthians 14, I think the word build up or the phrase build up is used like 7 or 8 times. Like the gifts are to build people up. They're to encourage. They're to call people higher. And so if I set my heart to build people up, God's going to gift me and equip me to do it, not in my own power, but in his.
Thank you, Lord.
So if we want to see God move in supernatural ways, if we want to see miracles breaking out and healings taking place and be a prophetic culture, all we have to do is set our heart to build people up and not tear them down. To treat them like they're children of God. To love people unconditionally, and it's not always easy, and we're not going to be perfect at it, but if my heart is in that direction, his grace is going to carry me through it.
Thank you.
So we're here, communities build each other up. And then in Hebrews chapter 3:13, it says, but exhort one another every day. Again, it's like build up, encourage. Every day, as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. There's something about having godly people in your lives that expose sin for what it is. You need to have people in your life that go, hey, we're not doing that today. Dude, you're higher than that. You're better than that. You've already been set free from that. Don't go back. I remember talking to a guy one time, and he was pretty much done with church. And I said, bro, you need people who see things you don't see and can tell you when you're wrong. Because I don't know what I don't know, and I don't see what I don't see. I don't know what's going on an inch behind my head. But I got people like Josh Rios that go, bro, this is what's going on. I see this. You may not see it, but I see it. And I just want to bring it to you. It says that wounds of a friend can be trusted. I need friends that can wound me. Not in a mean way, not in a vindictive way, but with grace and with love, wound me. Because I need to know what I don't know. We need people like that. We need people who are walking with God who can go, yo, that is taking you down a path you don't want to go. Or you go to them and you're like, yo, I'm going down a path I don't want to go. I need you to stand with me. I need you to pray with me. I need you to encourage me. I need you to hold me accountable. Accountability isn't just something for the sake of it being there. It's so that brothers and sisters can encourage each other, build each other up, so that the deceitfulness of sin doesn't grasp each other. So I'm going to go to Romans chapter 12, and I guarantee you I've read this multiple times before, and it's a little lengthy. This is 2 sermons in a row that I've had a huge chunk of scripture, but I think that this is just a beautiful outline of what healthy community can look like. And so I read multiple versions, and I like the Passion Translation, so we're going to go with that, but I recommend you read it in other versions as well. But this is 12:9 through 21. It says, "Let the inner movement of your heart always be to love one another, and never play the role of an actor wearing a mask. Despise evil and embrace everything that is good and virtuous. Be devoted to tenderly loving your fellow believers as members of one family. Try to outdo yourself in respect and honor of one another. Be enthusiastic to serve the Lord, keeping your passion toward him boiling hot. Radiate with the glow of the Holy Spirit and let him fill you with excitement as you serve him. Let this hope burst forth within you, releasing a continual joy. Don't give up in a time of trouble, but commune with God at all times. Take a constant interest in the needs of God's beloved people and respond by helping them. Eagerly welcome people as guests into your home. Speak blessing and not cursing over those who reject you and persecute you. Celebrate with those who celebrate and weep with those who grieve. Live happily together in a spirit of harmony and be as mindful of one another's worth as you are your own. Don't live with a lofty mindset thinking that you are too important to serve others, but be willing to do menial tasks and identify with those who are humble-minded. Don't be smug or even think for a moment that you know it all. Never hold a grudge or even try to get even, but plan your life around the noblest way to benefit others. Do your best to live as everybody's friend. Beloved, don't be obsessed with taking revenge, but leave that to God's righteous justice. For the scriptures say, vengeance is mine and I will repay, says the Lord. And if your enemy is hungry, buy him lunch. Win him over with kindness, for your surprising generosity will awaken his conscience, and God will reward you with favor. Never let evil defeat you, but defeat evil with good. It's super easy to read that, and you're like, oh, that sounds amazing. Harmony, no judgment. It's not that easy. I'm not dumb. I get it. But if we can learn from the Lord how to do this, how to see people the way he does, how to trust him enough with my life that I can give away from myself to others, then this is feasible. He's not going to put it in the Bible if it's impossible. He's not going to have this amazing picture of what a church could look like if it wasn't the heart of God. It's his word, it's his spirit. So this is feasible. Yes. We just need to learn how to navigate into it. Because you're probably going to offend me, and I'm probably going to offend you, and you're not going to agree with everything with me, and I'm not going to agree with everything with you. But somehow, we are the body of Christ, yes. And I still need you. And I still need to love you when I disagree with you. And something God showed me a long time ago was, I still need to protect the people I'm mad at. Because my old mindset would be like, Noah, did you hear what they did? I am so, ugh. Now, I need people to vent to, so I may say that exact thing to Noah. But the thing is, I'm only going to say that to maybe one or two people who counsel me. I will not broadcast your offense to me. I will keep it within the men or women of God who speak into my life, and I'm like, I don't know what to do about this. That's it. Because God said, protect them. Because what I'm doing when I tell everybody about my offense is I'm now poisoning their minds toward that person. I'm trying to get as many people on my side so I can feel better about being offended. That's not healthy. It says it is, what is it? It's noble, or it's in Proverbs. It's like noble to overlook an offense. There's something godly about being offended and not letting it get deep down inside, but going, God, I give this to you. Just show me what to do. And then I maintain relationship with that person. I don't poison my world around them to them. And we go forward in a healthy manner. This is possible. And we have to learn how to begin moving in that direction if God's going to bring the nations to our church. Yes. It's one thing to say he's taking the roof off and the Spirit's coming. That's amazing. But what are we going to do in the meantime? I think it starts with a fresh revelation of the gospel. I think the way, it talks in Galatians, don't bite and devour. And the way you learn to not bite and devour is get so caught up in your identity as a son or daughter of God. Recognize that God loves you and is for you, that you are righteous, that you are blessed, that Christ has equipped you for everything that you need. And now all of a sudden, I don't have to prove myself. There was somebody several months ago. To say they offended me would be quite an understatement. I would say I was hot, if you will. And they sent me a text that was just so out of the blue and ridiculous. And I'm like, oh, really? And then I would delete it, and then I'd be like, oh, this sounds better. And then I'd delete it. And it was very clear the Lord was like, I don't want you to respond at all. And I'm like, yeah, but I have a legit response to everything he just said. Like, I could nail this guy to the wall. Like, I will win this argument. No doubt. And it just so happened I was flipping through YouTube, and there was one of those little shorts. And there's this minister. I don't think I've ever seen him before. And I don't think I've seen him since. Maybe I saw him once or another time. But he said, when someone is being dumb, just end the argument and let them think you're right. Who cares? And I'm like, well, that's timely. It's not the answer I wanted, but I was like, fine. But I was like, but did you see my list? And he's like, yeah, I see your list, and I think he thought I was right. But he's like, do not say a thing. Walk away and let him think he's right. All right, God. And you know what? I'm over it. Yeah, it shows I'm over it, right? But I feel like I've navigated it in a healthy manner. It's not like that my flesh isn't talking, but I feel like, all right, God, you told me to let him think he's right and not prove that I'm right. You're the only one I'm accountable to. That's right. That guy's opinion is really neither here nor there in the light of anything. You're the only one I want to please or that I need to. So God, if you say, let him think he's right, let him think he's right. And he still thinks he's right, and I know he's not. Just being honest. But yeah, I think if we begin to align our hearts and our priorities with the kingdom and with what Jesus has done, we can navigate life with people and as a congregation a lot easier. There's going to be a lot more grace. I'm a lot more forgiving and a lot more graceful when I realize how much grace and forgiveness has been put toward me. You put that dude's offense compared to my offenses toward God, it's non-existent. But I'm forgiven. He's forgiven me. He loves me. He looks at me in my garbage and he's like, man, I still love you. So how can I not do the same to that guy? It comes back to the gospel. So one of the things that was on my mind, it was funny, I had this experience recently. I was at another church, and it's a smaller church, and there were two people who have they obviously didn't know anybody. They were sitting by themselves, and there was nobody around them because it's a smaller church. And it was the time to like greet your, shake hands like we do. And knowing that they knew no one, I watched, and no one greeted them. And I was like, oh, I have to go greet them. Because here's the thing, when people show up, when God brings the people, if we don't acknowledge them, they're just going to turn around and leave. Because they're looking for connection. They're looking for community. People are looking for it. And so I went and I talked to them, I greeted them. That was very simple. But I'm asking you, as the congregation, as the body of Christ Community Church, when people come in this door, please surround them with love. Please greet them, ask them their name, where they're from, if they need anything. Let us be a body that is so full of love and service that people are like, I need to come back. That experience, well, I had two stories. Because of that, I'm standing on this stage today. Because I showed up at a campus ministry at Penn State in 1997. Don't do the math, I am older than you. And I showed up and I didn't want to be there, just like Jenna. I'm like, I don't want to be here. But God told me to go. And so I show up, do the service, whatever, and I happen to be wearing a Steelers sweatshirt, which you should all get one because they're amazing. And Todd Horner, a lot of you know Todd Horner, came up to me with the president at the time. His name was Elliot. And he's like, hey, man, nice sweatshirt. You a Steelers fan? I'm like, yes, I am. And we talked about football, maybe 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, these guys are awesome. And then they're like, hey, if you ever want to come to Christ Community, man, just let us know. I said, well, I'll come back next week. 20-some years later, I'm on the stage. Because somebody dared to just approach me and ask me about my sweatshirt. Literally, it's that simple. And I'll end with this. When Josh and I were in Germany last year, I met this girl, and she wasn't dressed in we went to a goth festival, if you don't know. Josh and I went to do ministry at a goth festival, which you should all try that too. And this girl, she wasn't dressed in the really dark, demonic stuff. She just had this, I can't remember what they're called, but it's a type of goth, and she just looked like an alien type thing. And I just struck up a conversation with her. She was probably 18, 19 years old. The sweetest girl you will ever meet at a goth festival. I mean, just this innocence about her, and she was so pleasant and sweet. And so I asked her, I said, how did you how'd you start getting into this scene? She goes, well, to be honest with you, I wasn't really popular in school. People made fun of me a lot. She's like, but then I found this group, and they're actually really nice, and they just love me for me. And so I've kind of found the community that cares about me, so I've kind of just jumped in both feet. And I was like, my gosh, this girl needs church. She was looking for what we have, but she went and found it somewhere else. I've heard so many different stories of people in all kinds of different lifestyles that are like, I was just looking for community and I found some people that liked me. I found somebody who cared about me because my family doesn't care about me. People around me don't care about me, but these people care about me. So I'm going to go with them. We have to be those people.
Amen.
And God, according to his word, is going to send them in. So are you ready? Are you ready? Ask the Lord. When you come on a Sunday, God, is there somebody? This was actually, I think that was Kirsten again, her idea. She texted the young adults one Sunday, come to church today asking the Lord who he wants you to minister to. Not just show up to hear a sermon, show up seeing what the Lord wants to do through you. Because this is a team effort. You have something to offer the body of Christ. Every one of you. You have gifts and abilities and talents. You have personalities. You have spheres of influence. There are things that God has put on the inside of you that we need.
Amen.
You should be super encouraged because you're needed and you're loved. And so ask the Lord how to let those things out so that we can love people and we can be a community that, we're raising up world changers for Christ. Let's do that. But that's only going to happen if we're a healthy community. And so I'm going to pray. Worship team, if you want to come up. All right, I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to do my altar call is just going to be you standing up if you say yes. We're not going to come up front, but if you want to come up front for prayer after, by all means, please do that. We have people that want to pray for you, not only about the altar call, but if you need a healing, you need a miracle, you just need some strength, you want to be blessed, we got a prayer team. We would love to have you come up. But if you could bow your heads, please. Lord, I thank you that you have called our church to influence the world for the gospel. Lord, you have given us prophetic words that your Spirit wants to break out amongst us, that you want to touch our community and touch our state and touch our nation and touch the nations through the people of this church. God, I ask that we would be like the woman in Isaiah 54, and that this would be the season for us to expand our tent pegs. That we would begin to prepare for the move before we see the move. That we would prepare our hearts to receive those that you want to heal. Those that you want to save, those that you want to deliver, those that you want to raise up to change the world. Lord, show us how to do that. Give us the grace on how to do that. Give us the strength, Lord, to step over the lines that we've drawn and step into community like never before. And those of us who are deeply in community, I pray for eyes to see those who aren't and compassion to bring them in. That, Father, no person who walks through these doors would feel unseen or unwanted. But that, Lord, this would be a place where you can trust us with those who are longing to be loved, longing to be accepted, longing to know you. God, let this be a congregation that can be entrusted with your lost loved ones. Yeah. Father, heal us where we need healed. Strengthen us where we need strengthened. Anoint us where we need anointed. So that we can be a community that reflects the kingdom of God in every way possible. Help us see people differently. And may it all be to the glory of the name Jesus. May your name be famous in this house and going forth out of it. And so if you're here today and you're like, I want to be part of it. I'm ready to expand my tent pegs. Whatever that looks like, I'm going to ask you to stand up. If you're like, I feel that. I want to be part of a community that people can be sent to and find Jesus. I want to be someone that God can entrust with his lost ones, with his prodigals. When they come home, are they going to find the face of the father and not the face of the older brother? Jesus, you see the people that are standing. God, this is in response to what you've already spoken. This is a prophetic statement, God, that we believe that you're coming. We believe the word that your Spirit is being poured out in this body, in this city. So Lord, meet each one of us where we are so that we can build a community that looks like and operates like the kingdom of heaven. And God, do it in a way that we can sustain the move. We're not looking for a flash. We're not looking for a good couple months or a year. God, we want a habitation of the move. Let your love flow through every one of us, every day, in every circumstance. We honor you, God, for what's coming by faith in Jesus' name. Amen.